Hi, AirSpacers. We're hard at work getting a brand new limited series ready for you. In the meantime, we turn to our friends at Sidedoor to bring you the story of the Wright sister. Catherine Wright was Orville and Wilbur's younger sister whose support was instrumental in their success. It's a fascinating story, and we hope you enjoy.
This is Sidedoor, a podcast from the Smithsonian with support from PRX. I'm Lizzie Peabody. In 1909, the Wright brothers, Wilbur and Orville, were invited to meet President William Howard Taft at the White House. This was 6 years after their pioneering first flight at Kitty Hawk, and the Wrights had just returned from Europe, where demonstrations of their flying machine had made them into international superstars. In honor of the returning heroes, dignitaries and congressmen gathered at the White House. There were speeches, and then President Taft presented the Wrights with gold medals on behalf of the Aero Club of America. There's a picture from that day. In the photo, 10 men, all in dark suits, stand in a line outside the White House. In the center is President Taft, broad-shouldered and mustachioed, flanked on each side by the Wright brothers, Wilbur, looking slender in his too-large jacket, and Orville, looking dapper in shiny shoes and dark mustache. But next to Orville is a woman, the only woman in the picture. Women, as a rule, were not allowed at the Cosmos Club, where the lunch reception was held. But for this particular VIP, that rule was suspended. Unlike the dark-clad men, she is dressed in white. Long white skirt, long white sleeves, on her head an elaborate feathered cap. She holds a bouquet and looks directly into the camera lens with a half smile. And of course, she would be there. Because back then, the Wright siblings came as a package. And this was the Wright sister, Catherine.
Wilbur and Orville Wright invented the airplane, but could they have done that without Catherine Wright? Now that's the interesting question.
Curator emeritus Tom Crouch says, we all know the Wright brothers and their role in pioneering flight. Heck, their airplane has an entire room at the Smithsonian. But would the Wright brothers have been the Wright brothers without their sister? This time on Sidedoor, who was Catherine Wright? And when we tell the story of flight, why is she so often left out of the picture? That's coming up after the break. From the start, Catherine Wright stood out. Of the 5 Wright siblings, she was the only girl and the youngest. And her name was spelled with 2 A's, K-A-T-H-A-R-I-N-E.
Which is not a common way to spell it. Mm-hmm. And I think her mother and father did that to give Kate a sense that she was her own person.
Wow.
And she was. She always was.
Tom Crouch again, curator emeritus at the Smithsonian's National Air and Space Museum. He says to really understand Catherine, or Kate as she was called, you have to meet the whole family. The Wrights lived in Dayton, Ohio, in a pretty home with a wraparound porch on Hawthorne Street.
It was a big family. There were 2 older brothers, Ruth, Lynn, and Lauren.
The older boys were a kind of duo unto themselves. Then came Wilbur, the middle child.
And then Orville, born 4 years after Wilbur, and then Catherine, born 3 years to the day after Orville.
Catherine and Orville shared a birthday, August 19th. Orville in 1871, and Catherine in 1874. So she was his birthday present, his 3rd birthday present.
She was, in many ways. In a large family like that, there are always special relationships that bind children.
And Orville and Catherine had a special relationship. Orville, the youngest of the 4 boys, enjoyed being an older brother to his little sister. He felt it was his job to take care of her.
And he did. When they were children, collecting trash and that kind of thing to sell to the trash man, Kate was the one he would pull around in his little wagon while he was doing it.
If the Wright brothers inherited an inventive spirit from one of their parents, it was definitely their mother, Susan. Their father, Milton, was a bishop, serious, pious, and often away traveling on church business.
I've said, without exaggerating too much, that Bishop Wright was a man who couldn't pound a nail straight. But Susan, whose father had been a blacksmith and a wagon maker, was just wonderful with tools. She'd grown up in her father's workshop, and when things around the house had to be fixed, Susan did it.
Catherine wrote lots of letters and kept diaries, and she would later write that her mother could make anything. When the family couldn't afford a sled for the children, she built one herself. In one letter, Catherine remembers noticing,
"She recognized something unusual in Will and Orv, though she loved us all just the same. She never would destroy one thing the boys were trying to make."
She basically saved every little invention they made and would put it on a shelf for them to come back to later.
This is Thomas Paone, museum specialist at the Smithsonian's National Air and Space Museum.
She encouraged them to kind of make these toys and make these things that they were tinkering with.
While Susan gave her children the freedom to explore their own interests, Milton gave them a healthy dose of wariness.
The bishop was one of those men who raised his children to understand that the world was a fairly dangerous place. And in the end, when everything's said and done, what you have in this world is family. And that's the way they were raised and the way they lived their lives. Just an extraordinarily close family.
Kate would later write,
"No family ever had a happier childhood home."
But when Kate was not quite 7 years old, her mother got sick with tuberculosis. Over the next several years, she got gradually weaker until in 1889, at the age of 58, she died. The evening of her death, the bishop wrote in his diary, "Thus went out the light of my home." Catherine was 14 years old.
And she basically becomes the woman of the house.
She was the baby of the family, but she was the only daughter.
At one point, the bishop actually says, "Gosh, I'm glad we have a girl and I'm glad it's you because I'm going to depend on you in my old age." And I mean, that's the way people looked at it.
Catherine cooked and cleaned, kept household accounts, and acted as her father's secretary, when he was at home and when he was away.
And he would send her these long letters full of punch lists. Do this, do that, put this letter in X box in my big roll-top desk. And he's really putting considerable pressure on her. And she does well with it. Catherine Wright was not a shrinking violet.
Kate had no qualms about being in charge. She was a deft decision-maker, a lively conversationalist, and opinionated.
I mean, she marches in women's temperance marches and in women's rights marches, and the bishop marches with her. So while there's a sense in which she's leaning on Catherine, there's also a sense in which he appreciates her as a human being and wants to make sure that she grows and has her own place in the world.
This is part of the reason why, in 1893, when Catherine's in her late teens, her father decides to send her to college.
And it wasn't some minky-dink church college. He sent her to Oberlin.
Oberlin was the first college in the country to formally admit both men and women. It was regarded as one of the best schools in the nation.
And she does very well. She is very successful academically speaking.
College opened Kate's world. From a house full of men, she moved into a dormitory full of women, and there she made the best friends of her life. Here was the first place she forged an identity outside of her family. She was an excellent student, particularly loved Greek and Latin. The only thing she didn't excel at was math. Unlike her inventor brothers, who reveled in calculations, Kate needed the help of a fellow student to tutor her through math. And you'll want to remember him for later. Still, Kate graduated with top honors, and with that, became even more unique in her family.
She's the only Wright sibling to have a full college degree.
Was there an expectation for Catherine to marry? A lot of women went to college to meet their husbands.
I don't think marriage was 100% off the table, but I just think that wasn't her main focus.
I think if Catherine had wanted to marry, she would have married. Although, in a sense, it's good she didn't, because there is a sense in which she made the invention of the airplane possible, because she wasn't married.
After graduating, Kate moves back to the house on Hawthorne Street, where her brothers Orville and Wilbur and her father are still living. There, she finds her brothers, Orv and Will, have become obsessed with this notion of flight.
Which is in the air, if you'll pardon the expression.
They'd started out by opening a small printing business together.
And it's at that point that the Wright brothers are born. That's what they call their printing operation, the Wright brothers printing.
From there, they'd opened a bicycle repair shop, as one does. But on the side, they'd started experimenting with building flying machines. So Kate returns to a household now littered with sticks of wood and scraps of fabric, and she lands a coveted job teaching high school Latin.
She's a full-time professional, a teacher.
But at the same time, she resumes her role as head of the household, overseeing meals and chores and helping her father with his secretarial work.
But her brothers are the ones who really need her.
Orv and Will were working obsessively on prototypes of gliders that, when fitted out with an engine, might actually carry a human through the air. Each year, they'd take their newest model down to Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, and spend a few weeks testing it out there, where the wind on the beach would generate lift and the sand dunes would cushion their landings. Before one of those trips, Kate wrote to her father.
Will spins the sewing machine by the hour while Orv squats around marking the places to sew. There is no place in the house to live, but I'll be lonesome enough by this time next week and wish I could have some of their racket around.
Will and Orv were able to leave for months at a time because Kate was there to supervise their businesses.
Kate's the overseer. I mean, she watches that shop like a hawk.
That was practical support.
That's one role that Kate plays.
The other role is a little harder to define. It was one of emotional support. She was the person her brothers wrote home to, especially Orville. Like this one from September 1902.
Dear Sturtians,
Their nickname for sister.
I got your registered letter containing $25 yesterday. You ought to send Pop's letters on to us after reading them, as we only hear from him every 2 or 3 weeks.
It was a lonely project for Wilbur and Orville, being away from home, living rough out of a tent, and working on this puzzle of human flight. And Kate was the one back home paying attention.
Far more than their father. It's sad in a way. When you look at the bishop's diaries for the years during which his sons are inventing the airplane, for heaven's sakes, he seldom mentions them or what they're doing.
Wow.
There's just not much about it in the diary.
He was occupied with other things.
He was.
Church biz.
But not Kate. Those were her brothers, and she knew everything that was going on.
We have 3 regular occupations now, with occasionally a 4th. Eating, sleeping, chasing pigs and mice, and gliding now and then when the weather is favorable.
Orville writes to Kate about the elaborate mousetraps he's constructing, which the mice all seem to evade.
Talking about what it's like to camp out in the tent at Kitty Hawk.
The bugs were abominable.
And the mosquitoes. The mosquitoes.
So they had to get inventive.
We have been building a little fire and have been giving the building a good smoking early in the evening. If my thoughts seem a little clouded, you will know the reason. I can hardly see across the room tonight.
He goes on to share milestones and mishaps of their latest experiments.
The machine is a great improvement over last year's machine. I glided a distance of 160 feet. I not only succeeded in smashing the record, I smashed the machine too. And it, as a result, has been in the repair shop much of the past week. I got out without a scratch and only need a little addition made to my coattails to cover up a certain part of my trousers. It is getting late and I will close. Write a little oftener to your bubbo, Orville.
The role that she plays in that sense is extraordinarily important, and she just generally takes care of them.
It was a chilly day in December 1903 when Kate got home from teaching school to find her father just inside the door, holding a telegram and smiling. It read,
Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, December 17. Success. 4 flights Thursday morning, all against 21-mile wind. Started from level with engine power alone. Average speed through air, 31 miles. Longest, 57 seconds. Inform press. Home Christmas. Orville, Wright.
Of all the moments in the history of flight, this is the moment you've probably heard about, when the Wright brothers flew aboard a heavier-than-air machine powered by an engine. Maybe you've even seen the grainy black and white photo of Wilbur standing on the sand dunes, as Orville, lying flat on the flying machine, sails through the air. But for the Wright family, it was the beginning of an adventure just starting to take off.
The original 1903 Wright Flyer was very much a proof of concept. It was not kind of the final design.
Over the next 2 years, Wilbur and Orville took their success at Kitty Hawk and built on it, continuing test flights in a pasture near their home in Dayton, and moving cows out of the way when necessary.
They were fairly quiet about it, continuing to develop the machine.
Kate continued to step over canvas and wood pieces in the living room on her way to teach high schoolers conjugations. Their father continued his bishoply duties near and far, and Daytonians got used to the sight of the Wright Flyer circling above the pasture. They honestly didn't take much notice. It was almost too unbelievable to comprehend. But by 1905, the brothers had a machine they felt confident in, and they had 2 interested buyers, one in the U.S. and one in France, provided they could successfully demonstrate what the machine could do.
So since they can't be in 2 places at once, Wilbur's going to go to France and do the French contract.
And Orville is going down to Fort Myer, Virginia, to demonstrate to the U.S. Army.
And he does, and it's a huge success.
That is, until September 17th, 1908.
When he crashes.
Kate was home alone when the telegram arrived. A mechanical failure had caused the flyer to crash in Fort Myer. Orville's passenger had been killed, and Orville was in the hospital. Within 2 hours, Kate was on the next train to Washington. In the hospital, she found Orville with a bandaged head wound, fractured ribs, and a broken leg. When he saw her, his eyes filled with tears, and she later wrote,
Dear little brother, he was so badly hurt. I never did anything much harder than walking into his room at the hospital and smiling as if nothing much was the matter. He said afterward he thought it couldn't be so bad, or I wouldn't have acted as I did.
For 6 long weeks, Kate stays by Orville's bedside, keeping watch all night long, every single night. She reads to him, answers his mail, speaks to his doctors, and generally keeps watch while he sleeps. Kate's dedication to her brother attracted the admiration of an Army lieutenant who checked up on them. So much so that decades later, he wrote in an article,
I came to know and appreciate the sterling character of the 3rd member of the team, who was with them through the vicissitudes of those early days, sharing their hopes and disappointments.
Orville recovered and returned home, but life did not go back to normal. Soon after, Wilbur wrote to the family from France. He wanted Orv to come help him with the flying demonstrations, and he wanted Catherine to come too. Will wrote to Kate,
We will be needing a social manager and can pay enough salary to make the proposition attractive. So do not worry about the $6 a day the school board gives you.
And she has this crisis because she went to school, is a teacher, but once again, her family needs her.
It was an offer she couldn't refuse.
She turns in her resignation at Central High School.
She basically gives up her teaching career, and it's really the last time she ever teaches.
Kate gives up her life. And from that point on, Catherine doesn't play a technical role in the invention of the airplane. But what she does is far more important.
When we come back, the world learns the name Catherine Wright. After the break. By the start of 1909, Wilbur Wright was a sensation in France. So much so that the hat he wore had its own name.
The Wilbur Wright cap. And that's the way they were sold in France, as Wilbur's cap.
It was all the rage, très à la mode. He'd gone to France to demonstrate the Wright airplane, but soon he was traveling all over for demonstrations and teaching flight lessons.
He taught the first Europeans to fly in France, Italy, and Englishmen as well.
Europeans across the continent were donning Wilbur caps and singing Wilbur's praises. And so when his siblings, Orville and Catherine, step off the boat in France that January, it is to great fanfare.
Kate becomes kind of a second center of attention.
Right away, Kate takes her turn at wowing the locals. Her brothers are good at flying, but she is good at socializing, talking with people, putting them at ease.
So she is seen as this kind of official spokesperson for the Wrights.
And remember, she taught Latin. She's good at languages.
She starts to learn French and actually starts taking some meetings in French, which is extremely impressive to the French people.
So impressive, in fact, that
some of the French newspapers actually speculate that she's actually the brains behind the whole operation, that clearly she's the one that really designed the airplane and the Wright brothers were just the builders, which is not true. She very much, she says that her whole life of, no, this was very much their project. No, the math and engineering was not my strong suit. It was definitely that.
Kate didn't need to steal her brother's spotlight. She drew enough light on her own. And she deftly shone that light right back on her brother's work, which is what they needed.
She is very good at selling the Wright brothers and their invention.
Because of her, Wilbur and Orville can showcase their invention in front of as many people as possible. She's managing the press, setting up meetings, coordinating demonstrations.
She meets the kings of England and Italy and Spain. She helps organize kind of all of these high society people to meet the Wrights.
People flocked to see them fly.
They become superstars. Everyone wants to get to come meet the Wright brothers. Everyone wants to have them at their party. So she really is helping keep that in check.
Mr. Bollé had telephoned to ask us to stay at his house, threatening trouble if we didn't.
There's one letter in which she says how she needs to make sure to say no's to the right no's and yeses to the right yeses, and
which invitations to accept and which to decline. She kept track of the different contracts in the works. Tom Crouch says Catherine enabled people to think of this pair of bachelor brothers in the context of a family.
Neither of them was married. Neither of them ever had children. And Orville, at least, had a difficult time, socially sometimes. But Catherine never did. Catherine represented the human side of the Wright brothers.
She was the social glue.
She was their sister, which is pretty neat. And she's a pretty neat person. So she did play an important role in creating the legend of the Wrights in Europe.
That European trip officially turned the Wright duo into a trio. It marked a turning point in their celebrity status. And after 5 months in Europe, the three sailed home together.
And when they come home, they're received as heroes. Dayton has a huge party for them.
The Americans have finally caught on.
They finally caught on.
Seeing Europeans' ecstatic reaction to the sight Daytonians had taken for granted for the past 6 years spurred an arguably overdue parade and all the accompanying festivities.
News had spread of the Wright brothers and the Wright sister in Europe, so she is very much a part of that celebration.
President Taft couldn't make it in person, so he invited the Wrights to the White House for a special reception. That's where they're all photographed together. Orville and Wilbur with their medals, Catherine with her bouquet. After all the festivities, the Wrights settled back into their house on Hawthorne Street.
They go into business, ultimately. They create the Wright Company. The Wrights run it. Kate's on the board and so on and so forth.
But
the story of the Wright brothers in business is not a completely happy one.
In 1912, Wilbur Wright returned from a business trip feeling ill.
They're not 100% certain, but it is believed that he may have contracted typhoid fever through oysters.
Typhoid fever was killing a lot of people then.
It was an infection that had a very high mortality rate.
Wilbur gets sicker and sicker. And a couple weeks later, to the family's disbelief, he dies.
And he's only 45 when he dies.
The papers reported the death as a tragedy, but nobody felt it more than Catherine and Orville.
This is just a devastating blow to them. They had been this team, they had been building this company, and then it all kind of abruptly ends. Orville never fully recovers. In fact, he sells the company. He essentially steps away from aviation after the death of Wilbur.
Basically, he retires in his early 40s.
And he becomes the grand old man of aviation.
The family moves from their home on Hawthorne Street to a grand house on the outside of the city. They call it
Hawthorne Hill. This is their retirement home, Grand Manor. Their estate.
Catherine helps entertain visiting admirers. You know, just ordinary folks like Charles Lindbergh, Franklin Roosevelt, and Thomas Edison. She's elected to the board of trustees of Oberlin College and busies herself with board affairs. Life goes on. And a few years later, the bishop dies peacefully in his sleep.
And after that, it's Orville and Kate.
Orville and Kate. They'd been a pair from the time she was born, on his 3rd birthday. Now in their 50s, they remained a kind of couple. Every time Orville entered their home, the first thing he did was search each room for Kate. Every summer, they spent 2 months at their cottage on a Canadian island, taking a boat into town once a week for groceries, swimming, reading, fishing, and hosting visiting guests.
They relied on one another. They were the most important people in one another's lives. And I think Orville assumed, okay, we're always going to be this way. Kate will always be there.
But there was something Kate wasn't sharing with her brother Orv. A romance. All their lives, Orville, Wilbur, and Catherine had stayed single. For the brothers,
they always made a joke of it. You know, they didn't have time for an airplane and women.
But for Kate,
there's plenty of indication that she had semi-romantic interests anyway.
She'd had a few flirtations. The Army lieutenant she'd met at the hospital during Orville's recovery from the crash at Fort Myer. A temperance advocate who liked to stop by the Wright family home and took a shine to her. The Arctic explorer, Wilhelmer Stephenson.
They wrote back and forth a lot, and exactly what happened isn't perfectly clear. But it is perfectly clear that she had at least a semi-romantic interest in him.
I mean, how could you not go for an Arctic explorer?
Yeah, you bet.
Orville could see very well that his sister had admirers.
But I still think that Orville assumed, all of that's just stuff. She and I are Orville and Catherine. And that's the way it's always going to be.
Domestic life partners.
Yeah. They are domestic life partners. That's his assumption.
But in recent years, Kate had reconnected with an old classmate from Oberlin, someone you know of, though you haven't heard his name yet. Harry Haskell.
He had actually helped her with her mathematics.
The old math tutor. Harry Haskell was now a journalist in Kansas City, where he wrote several articles about the Wrights.
He covers some of the controversy between the Wright brothers and the Smithsonian over who was the first to fly.
Which our listeners who are familiar with the Wronging the Wrights episode will know all about.
Yes, I won't go into details, but yes, he is one of the ones.
You have to get the tea from that episode.
That's right. He is one of the ones that is very supportive of the Wrights claim and is helping report that. He's a friend of the family.
Harry was a widower, and he and Kate wrote letters back and forth over the years, until finally, Harry confessed his love for Catherine in a letter. He proposed marriage, calling it a great adventure to look forward to. Catherine, who by her 50s had assumed she would never marry, was thunderstruck. She wrote,
"But Harry, you break my heart. I feel as if everything I had tried to be and do was tumbling down around me. I am sure no one can imagine how inseparable the relationship is now between Orv and me. I have taken care of him so much. I have lived in his life so long. I love him so, Harry, and we are so happy together."
Harry encouraged her to listen to her heart, that there was no pressure from him. But the next time they met, she discovered she was in love with him too, as much as she wished she weren't. And they began seeing each other in secret.
And Orville, from all we can tell, is absolutely unaware of any of this. And it goes on for about a year.
Until Catherine just couldn't do it anymore. She couldn't keep this huge secret from the brother she'd shared her life with, who pulled her around in his red wagon from the time she was a baby. She makes up her mind to tell Orville, but then keeps delaying.
And she actually can't bring herself to tell Orville that they are engaged. It's actually Harry that comes to speak to Orville.
On his next visit to Hawthorne Hill, Harry sits down with Orville alone in his office. And he tells him, "I'm in love with your sister. I think I can give her a good life. We've decided to get married."
It just hits him right between the eyes.
He is devastated.
He won't talk about it. He won't talk to her.
Catherine's worst fears were confirmed. And after that single conversation, all of their worlds shift forever. She leaves Hawthorne Hill with her clothes and just a few affairs.
She is racked with guilt that she is kind of leaving her brother, but it's kind of the first time in her life she does something purely for her.
Catherine Wright and Harry Haskell got married in 1926. It was a small wedding, nothing fancy. They'd hoped to get married at Hawthorne Hill, but Orville wouldn't hear of it. And after the wedding, Catherine begins to get settled into her new home in Kansas City.
She is making new friends, and again, she's very personable. She's used to that role, so she kind of fits right in, taking up that woman of the house role.
Is she happy?
There. She is. From what, from letters and whatnot, you can tell she is happy, but she always has that guilt in the back of her head.
Members of the extended Wright family kept her updated on the family news from Ohio. Her oldest brother, Rushlin, had died a few years before, but Lauren wrote. Orville never did.
The family talks to him and pushes and prods and talks about how foolish he is, acting this way to this woman who has played that role in his life. And he won't budge.
He's too hurt.
Yeah. She wants to reconcile, but it's not up to her.
Catherine writes to a friend,
"In my imagination, I walk through that house, looking for little brother, and all the dear familiar things that made my home. But I never find little brother, and I have lost my old home forever, I fear."
2 years after the wedding, Catherine and Harry are planning a long-delayed honeymoon to Greece and Italy, the classical places Catherine studied in college. But as they prepare for their trip, she comes down with a cold.
The cold turns to pneumonia and gets worse and worse.
As Kate gets sicker, their older brother Lauren calls up Orville. He says, look, enough is enough.
You have to do something. Think about this.
You need to make amends and you need to go see her.
And ultimately, he does go.
So Orville gets there basically the day before she dies.
Really?
Yeah.
What do we know about what his arrival at her bedside?
We don't know much. We know that he sits with her. Orville sits with her, but other than that, we don't really know much of the final moments.
Catherine Wright died of pneumonia just 2 years and 4 months after getting married, in March 1929, at the age of 54.
My favorite picture of Catherine was taken by a famous Dayton photographer in the 1920s, not very long before she got married. She has her pince nez on, and she has white hair, very distinguished looking, and very tough looking. You can see it in that woman's face. This is a woman who knows what she wants to do, and she's going to do it.
Today, it's rare to hear about Catherine Wright. But would the Wright brothers have become the Wright brothers without their sister? Her role is hard to quantify.
She didn't do the math for them. She didn't conduct the experiments for them. She didn't go to Kitty Hawk and ride on the glider with them.
But she was the one they rode home to, the one who watched their planes take shape. Their spokesperson, their biggest admirer, and their toughest advocate. The Wright brothers were the brothers they were in the context of their family, and part of that family was their sister.
That human connection that they had to Catherine is an intangible.
Tom Crouch says it's impossible to know what might have happened if Catherine Wright hadn't been her brother's greatest supporter. But that's not actually the most important thing about her.
She was not just a woman who was Wilbur and Orville's sister. She was a woman who stood on her own 2 feet, did things that she wanted to do, and lived a good life on her own.
Lived well.
Yep. She was her own person.
You've been listening to Sidedoor, a podcast from the Smithsonian with support from PRX. Okay, by now you've heard me refer to another episode we produced about the Wright brothers called Wronging the Wrights. It's the tale of the decades-long feud between Orville Wright and the Smithsonian. Spoiler alert, we are the villain. In fact, it was during Orville's estrangement from Catherine that he reconstructed the original 1903 flyer and sent it to London out of spite. Go check it out. Wronging the Wrights. Big thanks this episode to Tom Crouch and Thomas Paone, as well as to Allison Wood. We want to give special credit to author Richard Maurer, whose book, The Wright Sister, Catherine Wright and Her Famous Brothers, we drew on in our research for this episode. It's a wonderful biography of Catherine Wright, full of archival material, letters, photographs. I definitely recommend reading it if you're curious to learn more about Catherine Wright's life. You can also check out Tom Crouch's book, The Bishop's Boys, all about the Wright brothers and the Wright family. And if you're in the D.C. area, be sure to visit the 1903 Wright Flyer in the Hall of Flight at the Smithsonian's National Air and Space Museum. If you want to read more of the Wright family letters, you can find tons of them in the digital manuscripts collection of the Library of Congress. Dig in there and get lost. Special thanks to KJ Jax and Sam Nystrom for their voice acting in this episode. And thanks also to my very own Peabody brothers, Rufus Peabody and Tom Peabody, for their reads for this episode as well. Brothers really are the best. This project received federal support from the Smithsonian American Women's History Initiative pool, administered by the Smithsonian American Women's History Museum. Our podcast was produced by James Morrison and me, Lizzie Peabody. Executive producer is Ann Cananan. Our editorial team is Jess Sodick and Sharon Bryant. Janae Morris supported us with research for this episode, and Amy Drozdowska helped with story editing. Episode artwork is by Dave Leonard. Transcripts are done by Russell Gregg. Fact-checking by Natalie Boyd. Extra support comes from PRX. Our show is mixed by Tarek Fuda. Our theme song and episode music are by Breakmaster Cylinder. If you want to sponsor our show, please email sponsorship@prx.org. I'm your host, Lizzie Peabody. Thanks for listening.
I'm a great admirer of Catherine Wright's.